For this section of our video on how to turn a pen, we're actually going to be putting a finish on the pen. That involves a lot of sanding, probably everything from 80 grit all the way to 12,000 grit. And you can get everything perfect about a pen, but if you don't get the finish perfect, you ruin your pen. And we're going to show you how to do that today. If you like what you're seeing, hit the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. So sanding is the final step of this phase before we start putting a finish on the pen. We'll actually put the finish on the pen while it's still on the mandrel. So what I need to see now is whether I can get that dent out of it that I put in it when I accidentally drilled through the side of it. And you can see this. The grit of this sandpaper is so coarse that it's scratching the heck out of the pen. That happens all the time. Now, you want something between 120 to 150 to take it the next step. When you look at this now, I'm looking to see if I can see any scratches, and there are a few scratches here and there. Now I'm going to move on to this is a 220 grit. So it's roughly exactly twice as fine as the other one. So now we're going to move from a 220 to a 400 grit. Now you don't have to go up from here just yet, but I do. And I'm going to a 600 grit. What I'm wanting to make sure of, and here I can see that right now, when you take a close or fine look, this is too fat. It needs to be level with this shoulder, this metal shoulder, and it's not. You look at this end, and this end's just about perfect. If I were to take any more off of that end right there, I probably would break the end of the piece of wood. Let's get that speed back up to 2,000, close to it. Now we just want to, very carefully, we want to take this off. You see how much of that came off? And you can see the difference the sanding made on it. Right there. Now I need to do the same thing at this end. Yep, that looks pretty good. Now you can begin to see that making a pen is not a 10-minute job. It's complicated. It takes a while. You got to be patient, and sometimes you make mistakes, and you have to start over. So what I'm going to use for this application is I'm going to use a combination of CA finishes, and I'm going to use thin CA, and then I'm going to use a medium CA. I'm going to put 3 coats of this and 4 coats of this on, and every so often I'm going to use the activator to make certain it's dry. And so the key to this, and the thing that's most worth paying attention to, is that you've got to put this stuff on fast and be done with it. And if you don't, then your little pad will stick to the pen itself, and you'll run into problems there. If you put too much of it on, then it'll run, and you'll run into problems there. I'm going to turn the lathe on, and I want it to go as slow as it'll go. So I'm at about 500 RPMs. So I'm going to take my thin CA glue, just like so, and I want to pour it on and wipe it off at the same time. And I want to do it fast. So here's the way it looks. That's it. So I'm done with the first layer. Now I want to make sure before I put the next coat on that it's dry. So I get a fresh workshop towel and just see. Yeah, it's dry as a bone. A lot of people use this activator after every step. And that's very doable, but the problem is that sometimes you can get out in front of yourself, and if it's not pretty much dried, it leaves it kind of crinkles on the pen, and then you got to sand the pen back down. So I like to use it, but I also know that this is probably already dry. So I'm going to test it and see. If it is, I don't need the activator. Yeah, that's dry. It's a beautiful pen. It's made out of poplar, mineralized poplar. And we're ready now to go to the thicker CA glue. We're going to the medium thickness now. That's still a little bit wet. When you look at the pen, you can begin to see now it's not as smooth as it was. It's because I didn't rub that down quite hard enough right there. I think I can correct it with the next coat. Put a little activator on it, starting to get enough layers on it that you got 7 layers of finish on it. So you need to make sure that they're all dry in between coats. And the best way to do that is to use the activator. Just want to use it sparingly. So it's okay with me that I've got some of the finish that I can actually feel on it now, because I'm going through 9 more grits of sandpaper before I finish. Now what I'm going to do now, although this has already been sanded 5 times, everything from 80 grit up to 600 grit, now I'm going to sand it from 800 to 12,000. And I'm going to use a wet sandpaper to make that happen. And so what I like to do, I buy them in a pack. I don't have a spare pack there, but I buy them in a pack, and they come color-coded so that I can put them in and stack them and restack them. So once I take one out, I put the next one in so it can soak up. And what I want to do now is I just want to begin to sand this even smoother. So this is the one place that I like to get a cloth where I can kind of see what I'm doing, which just tells me it's working. But I like to watch it in between to make sure that I'm not sanding through. It is as smooth as a baby's butt. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change to a abrasive paste and use it to get just some more shine on it. So I'm back to paper again, and I want to use that's really too much. I buy this You can see it's called, it's made by Stickfast, and it comes in a abrasive and a polish, both, and you use them both. So now I'm gonna barely apply, and you're not going to believe what happens. There it goes. You see it? Is that amazing? Wow, that's looking good, isn't it? Now we're going to move from the abrasive polish and just put this as a wetter polish than the first abrasive that I used. So what we're going to do now, next step, is we're going to take it off the lathe. I'm going to leave it just right there and move to another mandrel. This is a polish mandrel. I've got some wax or polish, hard polish. And I'm going to turn it up as wide open. This is a finished product. Now we're ready to take it off the mandrel and put pin parts together with it and assemble it. Okay, so I've moved to pin assembly station, and this contraption is actually made for pin assembly. You can see here where the shoulder, the metal shoulder, has actually glued itself to the end of this piece, and that's okay. Doesn't hurt anything. Just pop it off. If you can see this, there is CA finish on the end of that point, and so I've got to get that off. It'll ruin my pin. So I've got a little piece of sandpaper right here, and I'm just gonna sand it off. So what I want to do first is, and I do these in this order, I want to put the point in it first, and then I come back with this arm very gently, because you'll bend the pin point if you put too much pressure on it. I want to put it in. So the brass piece of this goes in first, and it only goes to the line. You only want to push it into the line. If you push it too far, your pin won't close completely. If you don't push it far enough, your pin won't open completely. I go to the very first line that I can see, and now there's one line left you can see. And what I want to do now is takes a cross pin insert, and I want to put it in and take a look. So when you look at this now, you can see that's about where you would want the point of a pin to go. Now gets a centerpiece like so, and final step, we're going to move to the top. And it's difficult to do without making a mistake. Okay, so I'm going to put this final clip in, and a cap goes on top of that. And this is one place where if there's any imperfection on this piece, you can hide the imperfection behind the clip. You just put it together, and there you have it. Hi, I'm Craig Strickland with Banyan Studios, and we are wrapping up the series that we've been working on how to make a pen. We started with a blank. We finished with a finished product. I guess there may be 60, 70 steps or more to the process. If you've been following along, you'll see every one of them. And The one thing I've learned from turning this pen, and I learn something new every day when I'm working down here, but the thing that I've learned from turning this pen, you remember when early on when we were putting the barrels in it, I accidentally drilled a hole through the side of this pen. I didn't know if it was deep enough to make me have to throw this part of the pen away and start over or not. And so when I started turning that part of it, I took very close notice of how much of that hole I was able to carve off. And it was touch and go all the way through. In fact, the very last couple of steps, I put the turning knife down and moved to sandpaper and said, I got to finish this with sandpaper. And I wasn't sure, even at the sandpaper stage, I wasn't sure whether there would be enough meat on this part of the pen to make it look proportional to the other part of the pen. And it was touch and go the whole way. And I wasn't sure. Is life ever like that for you? Where it's just touch and go. You know, you're settling on doing the right thing. You have a project or a relationship or whatever, and it's touch and go. You don't know whether it's going to end up this way or this way. You're just not sure. But you stay in it. You stay in it and keep at it and keep at it and keep at it as long as you can until you finish it. Whatever it is, the relationship, the project, whatever, but it requires this level of patience to just keep on keeping on, a stamina to keep at the project and not give up. I don't like giving up, and I do make mistakes. This is a great example of one, and a great example of one that turned out okay. Here are 3 examples of ones that failed. And I showed those to you early on in the videos. You can see I don't always succeed. But I have a passion for staying with it until I've gotten every little ounce of effort that I can out of the project. Hope you've enjoyed the series. If you have, please press the like and subscribe buttons. And join us next week when we learn how to turn a bowl. It'll be fun.